In this video I'm going to look at converting the bomber program that I've written in NextBASIC to the same program but running in Boriel BASIC. The main difference being that Boriel BASIC is compiled, so it runs a bit faster, and also you can break your code down in a nicer way. So to start off with, getting Remy Sharp's text to BAS program and using that to convert my basic version into text files. So the README for that tells you how to install the software using VS Code. So using npm install global text to BAS command. That installs it into VS Code, and then the command to run it is BAS to text. So you pass in the basic file, and that then produces a text file. So starting up VS Code and going into my folder with the bomber code in, all the different basic revisions that I did as I was writing the code, and then installing the text to BAS software using npm. It's quite quick to do that. And then going back to Remy Sharp's README file, getting the command line to convert the basic file to a text file. Paste that in, and then just put in the most recent version of the basic file, which is zxbomber.bas, and then the output file that I want to send it to, which is all bomber.txt. So that creates that. I can open that up, and then looking at that I can see that it's got my whole program's there. See all the line numbers, and scrolling down it all looks okay, and as I'd want it to look. So there's about 250 lines worth of code there. So what I want to do is to first of all take out all the line numbers and then break the code down into a bit more usable way in different files. So I'm going to work on the code in my NextBuild folder. So I'll create a folder for bomber. So using this folder I've got the run task, which allows me to run in CSpect. So just checking that it still works. This is just an example program that I was using before. So I create a bomber folder. And drop the text file in that has all the basic in. And I'll just rename that to .bas, so I can work on it as a Boriel basic program. So then open it up. We've got all the codes nicely color coded. Makes it a bit easier to work with. So then if I try and build that, see what happens. We're getting a bunch of syntax errors. So I'm going to have to go through and sort out all the errors. I can ignore the warnings. So the first thing it's complaining about is the run at 2, which is a NextBASIC command. So that won't work in Boriel BASIC. So I'll just comment that one out. And then it's complaining about the user-defined graphics proc. next one, and the error it's giving is that it's neither an array nor a function. So going on to the Boriel website, looking at the code there, it looks like Boriel BASIC uses functions rather than procs. So I might need to change my code to use these functions. So to kick off with, I'm going to go through and take out all the line numbers, because Boriel BASIC doesn't need line numbers. I don't really like them myself, so I think it'd be easier to work on without line numbers. So I've just zip through that quickly, take out all the line numbers. And then save it as a different version. Then trying to compile that, I get similar errors. The first error is still define UDG is neither an array nor a function. So that's the first error I'll have to deal with. So I'll just try taking that function and putting it higher up in the code and see if that actually solves the problem. Just drop it in at the top of the code. And then rebuild. So it's giving me the same error, so it's not because of that. So if I change that def prop to function, and then at the end I want end function. So I'll go through and I'll replace all of the props with functions. So just checking the syntax on the Boriel website. So that function is now compiling, so that was the problem. So I'll replace endprop with end function throughout. We've got 12 instances of that. And replace defproc with function. So it's complaining about error. Define styles is neither an array nor a function, so I've still got something left to do with that. So I just put a few blank lines in to make the code a bit easier to read. You can't do that in NextBASIC. We'd have to put rem statements in, which is not quite as easy to read. So to call a function in Boriel BASIC, you don't need the prop word. So I'll go through and take all those out. So I've got 40 of those. And then just try and rebuild. So I've got rid of my proc function errors now. And then on to the next one, which is complaining about an illegal percentage character. So that's happening on line 102. So I scroll down to that, I can see that I'm using a paper command, using a random colour. So Boriel doesn't like that syntax. So if I go to the Boriel website and look up the R&D command, you see that that doesn't have the syntax with the percentage in. You just do R&D and then times a number. It does include the randomized statements, I can use that. So if I change that line of code, it's also complaining about a for next statement in the same area, but that turned out to be due to the R&D command, so that wasn't actually a problem. So the R&D statement needs a star, and I'll put the 5+1 in brackets just to make sure that that gets executed properly, and try and recompile that. And now that error's gone away, so we're on to the next one, and it's complaining about the run statement on line 115. There's also one on line 80. So that's not listed in Boriel, so I might have to do something a little bit different there. So if I just convert that to a goto statement, and then at the top of the code make the first line 10. I don't really want to use line numbers, but just for this, just to get it working, I'm just going to try this. Probably use a label in future. And that error's now gone. And then it's complaining about an until, which is part of the repeat until statement that I've used. So looking at the Boriel site, there is no repeat statement, so I can't use that command. But there is, looking down, there's a while statement, so I can use that instead. So if I take the condition sy equals 22, and I take that up and put that in a while statement, and make that sy is less than 22, and then I want to close the while statement, so I put end while there. Compile again. I was happy about that. So I've got some more percentage illegal character statements, so I'll go through and sort out those R&D commands as I did before. So then the next statements it's complaining about is undeclared labels. So the reason for that is because I took out all the line numbers, where I'm using gotos, there are no line numbers to go to. So again, as a temporary measure, I'll just put line numbers back into those commands. I'd rather use labels, but this will do just to get things compiling. So these are in key statements which need to go back to themselves. And compile once more. And it's complaining about an undeclared functional layer, which I believe is a NextBASIC command, so that won't work in Boriel BASIC. So just checking on the Boriel BASIC website, there is no layer command there. It's complaining about undeclared function play. Again, that's a NextBASIC command, so I can't do play, so I'll comment that out. And then it's complaining about the screen $ command. So that is listed on the Boriel website, but looking at the requirements, you have to do an include screen.bas at the top. So if I just copy that line out of the wiki and drop that into the top of my code, and try to compile that. So it's compiled it. So if I then try and run what I've got in CSpect, I'm still getting a bunch of warnings that I'll probably want to sort out later. That it's building it and it's copying it into CSpect. It's started up the home page and the game's running, so I can see all the buildings, I see the plane, and then it starts to go to pot. So I've got a bunch of stuff to fix here still, but the game is kind of working, but with errors. So this has taken me about 45 minutes to get this far. Obviously I've chopped this down for the video. Not too bad really. Okay, so sometime later, I've now got the code broken down. I've got the main file, which is allbomber2.bas, and then I've chopped out the start functions into a start.bas, and then I've got the end function in end.bas. So there's not too much in start.bas, and then there's just a few functions in end.bas. And the way you do this is you use an include statement, which I found in the Boriel BASIC manual. So I've gone through and I've put in a few types which seem to help things. So this array here are types of integer, and then all my variables I've put dimensions on, all going to integer. You can see the code's laid out a lot better now without the line numbers, and I'll be able to put some spacing in there, and also got nice indentation which makes it a lot easier to read. So this is the main function which runs the program in the game. So it's not too bad now, it's not a huge function. Got the function to draw the shape, function to clear the shape, redrawing the stars, checking the bombing, which doesn't look too bad. It's a little bit complicated, but it's not too bad. And then we've got the hoop building. So it's all looking a lot nicer, and if I want to work on it in future, it's a lot better like this. So I did have some logic errors, but by putting in types, that seemed to sort a lot of those out. If you've got functions in a separate BASIC file, you have to pass in parameters. You can't just use the global variables because they're not available in your separate BASIC file. So I've used by ref for the arrays, which is the way to do that. And also use some by refs here. You may not need by ref just for integers, but I've just done it like that. So if I try and run this, in CSpect. So I've still got all my warnings about floats. But it's compiled it and then running into CSpect. The pause command that I've used is not working in CSpect. I'm not sure why that is. That does seem to work on the next. So I press click start. And the plane's flying across, it's not crashing, and I can drop bombs. So the game's running to a certain extent, but you notice there was a speed change there. So that seems to be tied to the input. The code seems to speed up, so I've got some timing issues there. So So there's a bit of work still to do, but it's kind of working. It's not far off. And then if I just run it to where it crashes, and it's crashed. So we're kind of there. So this is running the NEX version of the code. If I try and run it as a tab, that runs too slowly really. But I think the pause is working there, but the code just is running slower, so that's not so good. And then it's the same when I run the tap on the next. When I try and run the NEX file on the next, that just crashes. So there's something wrong with that. I don't know what that is at the moment. So getting there. The conversion from NextBASIC to Boriel BASIC wasn't too bad. That's taken a little while. But an interesting experiment. And I hope this has been interesting to watch.